This show is produced by the Hartman Media Company. For more information and links to all our great podcasts, visit hartmanmedia.com.
His mentality about how to do houses have been very much in line with my own, and I thought it would be a way for me to polish up what I already know. I needed to be able to refine my strategy, and that's exactly what Jason has been teaching me. So I've got 25 houses of my own, which are a fair amount, but we need to always refine and continually improve how we go about our business, and I'm learning that from being here.
Welcome to the Creating Wealth Show with Jason Hartman. You're about to learn a new slant on investing, some exciting techniques, and fresh new approaches to the world's most historically proven asset class that will enable you to create more wealth and freedom than you ever thought possible. Jason is a genuine self-made multimillionaire who's actually been there and done it. He's a successful investor, lender, developer, and entrepreneur who's owned properties in 11 states, had hundreds of tenants, and been involved in thousands of real estate transactions. This program will help you follow in Jason's footsteps on the road to your financial independence day. You really can do it. And now, here's your host, Jason Hartman, with the complete solution for real estate investors.
Renter-majority suburbs are on the rise. Hey everybody, are we becoming a renter nation? You might have heard Jason talking about this before, but there is quite a bit of evidence out there pointing in this direction. The last decade has seen 103 metro suburbs transition from homeowner-dominated to renter-dominated zones, according to a recent report from rentcafe.com using U.S. Census Bureau data. With the recent transition of these 103 suburbs, 242 out of 1,105 analyzed suburbs within the 50 largest U.S. metro areas are now renter-dominated. The number of suburban renters has increased by 22% compared to a mere 3% increase in homeowners in these 50 metro area suburbs in the last 10 years. And out of these 103 suburbs that have become renter-dominated, most are located within the metro areas of Washington, D.C., Miami, and Los Angeles, whose famed suburb, Beverly Hills, is now renter-dominated. And what's more, it seems as if the wave of temporary migration that we saw in the early days of the pandemic in 2020 has turned out to be not so temporary. Jason was one of the first people talking about it, and according to this report, 57 more metro area suburbs are expected to follow suit and become renter-dominated in the next 5 years. Of these 57 metro areas expected to become renter-dominated within the next 5 years, most of these are located in California or Florida, but there are others located in Georgia, Maryland, Missouri, New York, and one in particular, Maple Heights, Ohio. Located in the Cleveland metro area, and with an already doubled renter rate, up 87% in the last decade, Maple Heights represents the suburb most likely to transition the soonest to a renter-dominated majority if its current growth rate continues. Millikan University Associate Professor of Sociology Kenneth Laundra connects the recent effects of the coronavirus pandemic to the projected uptick in renter-dominated suburbs. Quote, "With the increase in remote work, short-term projects, and side hustles, there's every reason to believe that the future will be a more transitory, migratory existence. Most of this migration will be towards cities and urban landscapes, where even the suburbs will cluster most closely to urban areas." Unquote. Who makes up the majority of the renter demographic? Not surprisingly, millennials and Gen Zs, according to census data, with 55% of renters younger than 45. For more information, please visit jasonhartman.com.
Welcome to episode 1747, and greetings from beautiful Snowbird, Utah, where I happen to catch it at almost the peak foliage change. It is absolutely gorgeous. I posted a photo on that evil company's website that is just getting hammered today, which I must say, I'm glad to see there's some justice. And that is FakeBook. Yes, FakeBook. Hopefully the Whistleblower will really cost them because they deserve it. I tell you, these social media companies, big tech companies in general, are just rolling over and abusing the world. It is the new robber barons of our era. It is the Rockefellers, the Carnegies, the Mellons doing all of the evil stuff that they did a long time ago. This is the way it works nowadays. It's big tech doing the same kinds of things. I mean, can you imagine how many teenage suicides Facebook is responsible for, and Instagram? Just unbelievable. And there is evidence out with the whistleblower that they don't care. They're just in it to take advantage of people and take the money. You know, they don't care about anything else, right? That's just the way it is. Anyway, we'll get on to some real estate stuff here. But boy, there's so much going on in the news. You couldn't ask for better news than Facebook on my birthday. That's great. It's fine with me to see that there's some justice. And as you know, if you've been following my work for a while, I have spent a lot of time and money in my own little corner of the world to get justice when there are property managers taking advantage of people, when there are sellers taking advantage of buyers, and so forth. You know, that's one of the things you got to do in business, right? After you've got enough money, you know, what is the point of all this, right? What is the point of all this? The point of all this is to make a difference, to police the industry, to do good things. You know, that is the point, at least for me. Some may disagree with that, and that's fine. Got some other good news here, some other good birthday news. Thank you to our client, James, who sent this to me. And that was about that huge burden on society, leaf blowers, yes, and other gas-powered gardening equipment. I've long said that a leaf blower that does nothing but move dust and trash around, which should be picked up and vacuumed up and put in a bag, you know, all it does is irritate people, cause noise, but the pollution is more than that of a Ford F-150 pickup truck. It is unbelievable that, you know, we're regulating everything, right? And listen, I'm not a big fan of regulation, but if we're going to be in the regulation business, let's regulate the right things. And that is one of them. An absolute dirty menace to society. So two good things on the birthday. So we're going to get to a market profile here and get you some updates on the market. That's with our guest today. But before we do that, you know, last week, I spent the entire week at one of my mastermind groups in Tampa, Florida. That was just such an enriching experience, made so many good contacts, saw so many great friends, had so much fun, enjoyed it so much. If there is one thing I really love doing, it is hanging out with bright people, entrepreneurs usually, but not always, who are really doing things to change the world, to move the needle, to make the world a better place. It's just incredibly stimulating to do that. And I tell you, one thing that you must consider doing is getting into a mastermind group. Of course, we have the Collective Mastermind Group. We have our event coming up in Scottsdale, Arizona, which is, by the way, where I'm headed 2 days from now. I'm going to do a site visit to our wonderful venue in Scottsdale and just kind of make some arrangements for that event, and that should be great. And that'll be in November. So if you're interested in the Collective, reach out to me directly through jasonhartman.com or go right to the Collective website, which is thecollectivemastermind.com, and check that out and see if it's of interest to you. And what else? The other thing. So you've all noticed this probably. None of us have been traveling too terribly much, but whenever I do, I am starting to notice how inflation is rearing its ugly head in interesting ways. We talk a lot about inflation on this show. We talk about hidden forms of inflation, and we talk about how we can beat inflation, how we can game the system, how we can benefit from what is really, really sadly hurting most people. But we know how to win. We know how to win with inflation. So one more of many, many examples. You see all of these hotels and airlines just cutting services. I mean, every business feels like it's just understaffed nowadays. You know, you used to get help. People used to help you with your bags. There used to be valet parking. They're shutting this down. There used to be a shuttle to take you around town or to take you to the airport, pick you up from the airport. All of these things are just rapidly disappearing. The restaurants in the hotel are just cutting back on service massively. And last night, I saw another great example of it. The reason I'm in Snowbird, Utah, is I was invited to speak at a fund managers conference. So I'm giving the keynote presentation tomorrow morning. And this conference, get this, is $15,000 a ticket. Which, by the way, even though it's not my event and I'm just a hired gun, a hired speaker, if you have any advice for me on what to say to make sure these people get their money's worth, $15,000 ticket, then go to jasonhartman.com/ask and give me some feedback because I feel a big obligation here to make sure these people get their money's worth and have a really good conference and get good information. I think I'll talk about the Hartman Comparison Index and inflation-induced debt destruction, kind of a combination of those two because they blend together real well. And of course, you've heard me talking about that on the show. And make sure you're listening to my Hot Seat show as well, because that's the show where I play the interviews of when other people interview me. And sometimes those are really some of the better teaching experiences. So be sure to subscribe to that one. It's just another podcast we have, Jason Hartman in the Hot Seat. And it's when people interview me, I play a lot of those interviews on that show. So check that out. Anyway, so this will be interesting. So they flew me in first class. And I got to tell you, flying first class last night on Delta Airlines, which is a good airline, as airlines go, which not much to compare to, right? Southwest and Delta, I think, are probably the two best airlines. Southwest, just because it gets you there and it gets you there on time, and I'm so impressed with their efficiency. 29 minutes on the ground. The plane's got to be in the air. Lots of direct flights. Admittedly, not luxurious. It's getting on the bus and going. When you just want to get there, Southwest is very reliable. Anyway. So I'm sitting down and the meal is a joke. It is an absolute joke. Now, this is another sign of inflation, just like the hotels cutting back on their service, right? You get a cardboard box, super destructive to the environment, by the way. You get a cardboard box with this cold little sort of protein salad that wasn't very good. And some plastic wrapped sort of little crackers and one piece of Ghirardelli chocolate. That's the $1,600 first class experience nowadays. Compare that to what it used to be like. And remember, I've made the comparison for you of when I was a kid and my mother would put me on the plane and I would fly alone, by the way, across the country to New York to stay with my grandparents. And I remember that ticket costing about $500. And I adjusted that for the official inflation rate. And it turned out that was equal at the time I did this. Now, of course, it's changed, but I did mention this on the show before when I did this analysis. That was comparable to about $3,300 today, adjusted for the official inflation rate. If you do it for the real inflation rate, of course, it would be much different. But we'll just go with the official rate by the Consumer Price Index, the CPI. CPI-U, the Urban Consumer Price Index, to be more specific. And then you look up the old TV commercials, the ones I remember as a child, and you look them up on YouTube. And look up Continental Airlines and watch some of their old TV commercials if you really want to understand what's happened with inflation. Here's why. There used to be a commercial for Continental Airlines that bragged about how in economy class, coach class, right, the cheap ticket, you get 3 feet before your 2 legs, 3 feet before your 2 legs. Can you imagine getting that in economy class today on any airline? No way, not even close. And then there was another commercial for Continental Airlines. Not sure why I remember Continental. Maybe their advertising was just more effective. But the commercial was, "Sorry, bub, no pub." And I remember as a kid walking into the pub where there was a bar and you could sit down in big, luxurious seats, club chairs, sofas, on a jet, on an airline. Yes, can you imagine that? Not even an idea today unless you're flying long distance on Emirates and you're paying, $15,000 to $40,000 for that ticket. So you would go to the pub and you would just hang out and have a drink and talk to people and socialize. And you would play Pac-Man. Yes, there would be a Pac-Man game. It was like a table and the screen was in the middle and you'd have people on either side. And that was the old idea of flying. For $500, you could fly across the country and have that experience. Today, not even close. So just understand that inflation happens in so many ways. And one of the things I frankly did not anticipate is the kind of forced inflation. Remember, there's cost push inflation and there's, demand pull inflation. These are different kinds of inflation. And we've talked about that in the past. I won't go into it today because we've got to get to our guest. But with this, the type of inflation I did not really anticipate with what's gone on during the pandemic is the government creating inflation not just through money printing, not just through the expansion of credit and low interest rates, lighting the economy on fire in that way, which is dysfunctional and toxic, of course, but businesses having to compete with the government. That is ridiculous, that a business should have to compete with the government. Yet that's exactly what's happening. And that's why we see fast food restaurants offering signing bonuses and $20 to $22 an hour wages. It's absurd that you would get a signing bonus to work at McDonald's or Burger King or Wendy's of $500 to $1,000. And then you'll get maybe $20 an hour, maybe $22 an hour. Now, of course, this varies by state and city, of course. But we've all seen some examples of that. And the reason they're having to do that is because they can't get workers, because they're now having to compete with essentially the government welfare programs. And that is very, very inflationary in a whole different way than probably anybody expected. So it's really interesting what's going on in the world. Of course, it's really scary, but I've taught you how to beat the system, how to game the system, how to win with these forces, win against these forces, or with them really, because we're aligning our interests with these very powerful forces. So I hope all that makes sense. One more thing before we get to our guest. Be sure to enter our contest. We got about 6 more days of that left, and it's my birthday month contest. So go to jasonhartman.com/contest. You can win some great prizes. Thank you for all of those of you who have already entered. We appreciate your entries, and we're going to be looking at your videos. Just make a quick video, super easy, no big deal. Don't agonize about this. 3 to 5 minutes, and tell us what you've learned from our teaching over the years. Tell us what your plans are. Tell us what you've accomplished already. Your 3-year plan, your 5-year plan, your 10-year plan. Doesn't matter. We just want to hear from you. So we wanted to make this very, very free form so that you can kind of tell us anything you want. Post it on YouTube, and the video that gets the most likes, views, and is the best video, we're going to pick 2 winners, $500 cash each winner. And if you closed a property through our network this year, you double your prize. So that's $1,000 cash for 2 winners. And then we've got a bunch of gadgets as secondary prizes, Ring doorbells, Kindles, Alexas, that kind of stuff. So go enter at jasonhartman.com/contest. and we're looking forward to having some great winners. And I got a little secret for you here, folks. Are you ready for the secret? Here's the little secret that can really benefit you. These are not big contests. It's not like a zillion people are entering. We're a small business with a small audience, right? So your odds are very good. So go ahead and enter because you have really good odds of winning. All right. So there's your hot tip for now. And jasonhartman.com/contest. And let's get to our guest and talk about some market profiles. Hey, it's great to have our local market specialist back on the show to talk about a couple of case studies and some interesting property opportunities. He just hosted a property tour for our group at Empowered Investor Live. It was awesome. We got such great comments. Everybody loved that amazing equestrian center you took them to for lunch, didn't they?
Yeah, that place is something else for sure.
Tell us about it.
Well, I mean, I didn't realize equestrian had such money and economy behind it, but that's now, I believe, the largest in the world. So it is the go-to place for the horse and equestrian industry. So it was over $1 billion to build. I mean, you could see it just driving around. It just went forever and forever and forever and forever. And it's brought a whole nother level of industry to Ocala, which was a smaller town, but had a strong little infrastructure economy, but that just expanded it quite a bit.
Yeah, it's really amazing. So we were talking, and you've been really doing some case studies on some of our clients to see how they did and what type of return on investment they got. And it is pretty mind-blowing, isn't it? You want to give us an example or two?
Yeah, so I think they may have even been on the show before. So David and Gina Nelson have been with the Hartman Group for quite a long time, become friends of ours. They were on the tour a few years ago when we first started. They were just getting into their properties or new owners. And we went by the area where they were in. They had bought 2 duplexes, not just one. So they purchased those, Jason, 4 years ago for $181,000. And the rents were projected at about $850 a month. Today, and it was nice to be able to read these numbers to David and Gina. They can sell it for $249,900 and rents are at $1,000.
Wow.
So it has gone up $300 for the building and values are up $80,000.
Okay, so did you calculate the internal rate of return on that, the IRR?
On similar ones we did, Jason, and once we take, this is the important thing, and actually you had taught me about the IRR. Cash flow is important, it is. But when I looked back at my portfolio, and I've been doing this 24 years full time, cash flow's there, it's a piece of it, but we have to look at debt reduction. We have to look at if we're not depending on growth, but getting in its way. We have the depreciation. And when I started to go into this, if David and Gina sold now, their internal rate of return would be somewhere around 35%.
That's amazing. So for those who don't know, there are many metrics, of course, we use to evaluate a real estate deal or an investment of any type. And IRR, or internal rate of return, is like the grand poobah. Okay, it's the granddaddy of it all. It is the metric that evaluates quite literally everything. Okay. And that IRR number includes cash flows. It discounts them for inflation. It's just, it's really just a very profound type of metric. And when I got into this at age 19, I took classes for the CCIM designation, Certified Commercial Investment Manager, because I wanted to do commercial real estate till I realized how much better residential was. And we had to calculate IRR by hand.
Oh boy.
And that took a while. It was complicated, but did it the old fashioned way. And I walked to school and it was uphill both ways.
The old days, right? The old days.
Right. So. But yeah, it's really amazing. And you did talk about Dave and Gina before, and I'm sure they're listening now. Hi, Dave and Gina. You had a couple other case studies, I think, right?
Yeah, well, Dave and Gina bought a few more properties. They had gone with a couple of different markets, like the new construction model, weren't sold on it in the beginning because it's a slow start. They're not ready in 60 days. You have to wait for it to be built. But with growth at your back in the markets we focus on in Florida, it's worked out. There was also Tom Tusnot, who's become a friend, ex-Air Force, successful in the mortgage industry. We've really hit it off on a friend level as well. I'm sure Tom might be listening. Tom and I got Yeah. Hey, Tom. So Tom's got a pretty cool story because still being a pilot, he flies to his market. So if he's coming to look at his properties or in Southwest, he'll actually just get in his plane and, take his little flight down there. But it was great to update him on his portfolio because, so some of the properties he was buying, he got into some of our earlier duplexes in Punta Gorda, which is Southwest Florida. Those were selling for $314,000 at the time and renting for about $1,200 a side. Today, that same property could sell for $429,900.
Wow.
And that's only in about 4 years. And rents are $1,425 per side. So they've gone up $225 per side. So that's
$500 total per month increase in
almost
cash flow.
$500. Yes, almost for rent, and then over $100,000 worth in equity.
Yeah. Oh, so at 450. Sorry, you said 225. Yeah, I thought you said.
Well, it was 1,200 rent, and then 1,425 for current rent. So went up $225 per side, and then 314,000 he purchased for. Today we could list it for 429,900, sell it all day long.
Incredible.
So, and that's why I like the patient money. We've talked about this, where I know you and I discussed in our own portfolios when we went into certain markets out west, and we both started out west. The cash flow.
We're talking about California.
Yeah, right? when we were both out in the Republic,
in the Socialist Republic,
but the cash flow was a little bit less. But there are also some fundamentals, especially for Central California, showing growth, and that ended up paying off. And we're seeing the same thing here. Yes, it takes a little bit longer with new construction, but again, Florida has quite a bit of favoritism now, right? For business growth, for population growth, people wanting to be here. And what we sacrificed in the beginning for new construction with timing, with potentially a little less cash flow, I'm seeing exactly what we aimed for. We don't depend on growth, Jason, which you and I have always talked about. Well, we do our best to follow the fundamentals to get in its way. And that's what we're seeing here. And the people smarter and bigger than me that are trying to get in, the big institutions and hedge funds, are saying, their analysts say that we're only in the second or third inning here in Florida, which is pretty exciting. And so for people like Tom and Gina, who got in 4 or 5 years ago, they are now more excited. They're still buying. And for other people are saying, is it too late? Not according to the experts, not according to what we're seeing with IRR just happening in the last 12 months. So it's pretty exciting to see the model actually having case study and not just, hey, we think this is going to work.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, if you look at the HCI, the Hartman Comparison Index, we updated it for the last 3 months because it's been kind of a wonky time right there with a lot of things in the economy, and people are starting to ask questions sometimes. And, the properties still look historically cheap. It's pretty amazing that this opportunity is still with us. Now, granted, anything could happen. We could see, rates increase a whole bunch. Unlikely, though. And even the Federal Reserve has said that themselves. I think this party is going to continue for a while.
Yeah. If you remember, I was telling you, I got to take my son to Alaska for his 18th birthday, dream fishing trip. And we were out at this lodge in the middle of nowhere. And the only other guests there were another guy and his 2 sons. And he was a developer, a little bit older, and he was developing in Boise. So we had great chats, super nice guy. And he said, what are you building these properties for? These duplexes and single family homes. I said, on average, most everything we have is between 200 and 400,000. And he's going, well, what about the single families? I said, well, most of the single families are between 199 and 299. And his jaw's dropping. I'm like, wow, is that expensive? I'm starting to get nervous. He's like, how the heck are you building for that cheap? He's like, in Boise and with the expanding areas out where I'm focusing, we're doing starter homes in the low 4s, just the homes. It's like, I couldn't even imagine the duplexes because so many people are leaving California to go there. So I think it's a good advantage point for us to see that, again, that affordability index here in Florida is still really, really healthy.
It is. Talk about construction. I mean, you're a builder, right? Talk about construction cost and what's happened. We saw lumber go through the roof. We saw it come down, but it still didn't come down to its pre-pandemic levels or even close to that. What's going on with construction materials? I am absolutely shocked that in so many parts of the economy, we're still seeing incredible shortages. It amazes me that we're still in a shortage environment after all this time. I guess when you have a just-in-time global supply chain, this is what you get, right?
And that's what people don't realize. That's what always construction materials were. It was mostly a just-in-time setup. And so when this happened, there were backups, they weren't ready. At the peak, it was up about 415%. Now on a 12-year average, lumber's up about 325%. So it's
You're talking about lumber, right?
Lumber. But the thing is too, when people have to understand, it's not just lumber. It's trusses, it's windows, it's appliances, it's sheetrock, it's everything.
It's
is up
hinges
right now.
And cabinets and knobs
Yes.
for cabinets and doorknobs and everything, door stoppers. It's unbelievable. It's just everything.
All of that.
But talk to us about, like, years ago, how much per square foot could you build a house for versus now?
Oh man, Jason, I am so blinded right now from those old prices. I don't even remember because it's so different, and it's where we're at now, and we had to go back to some of our clients, and to get it built, we won't sacrifice integrity of the build. We've had to do material price increases. But the encouraging thing of that, as they knew with going into Florida, are because of these inflationary materials going up, this also took the upswing of values going up more than expected and rents now indexing up. So it's actually working out in the favor. And what we've told people on the patience scale, patience has worked out. As you've seen, a lot of your clients who were delayed in the closing, once they did close, and we've had a lot of units closing recently, they're coming back and saying, wow, did you see what it appraised for?
Yeah.
You rented it for $175 more than what you said. We said, well, that's the advantage. Patience on this will almost every time make our clients money. It costs us money because we have the interest fees to our building lines, but that's the volume game we play. But once we got through these material increases, people are having a very positive side on the outside. And we feel very lucky, Jason, because a lot of small builders, if you and I were just like, hey, let's get together and just build 2 or 3 houses, we could call like for trusses. That's the thing that build roofs, in case people don't know.
You can't get them.
They would just say, sorry, guys, we just can't even take your order. Right. So you have to have a certain level of volume. And now that we're in 15 markets, we've been able to build up enough volume where we're not one of the big guys, but we have really good relationships that are keeping us fed and steady to be able to continue to build.
Sure. Yeah. This saying I always use of that almost every deal looks good in the rear view mirror. You just got to let some time pass. Yep. And real estate always proves itself, at least it always has so far, knock on wood, anything could happen in the future. But compared to what? I mean, what else are you going to do? There's just nothing that comes close to this. And I can hear all the people out there saying, gold, Bitcoin, cryptocurrencies. Oh, yeah. Well, guess what? That is under attack and has no actual utility. And listen, I'd love to be wrong about Bitcoin. I would love nothing more than to see that work out. I do own some, just because I don't want to have FOMO in case I'm wrong. But, everybody needs a place to live. And think about how this is going to be in 2026, in 2031, 5-10 years from now. I mean, real estate is the thing. It's just the thing, Yeah.
And our growth, we cannot even keep up with the growth. I mean, right now in Florida, we are on our fastest ever report times for filling vacancies. A lot of our new construction are pre-filled before they're even done. Because there's just such a demand and there's not enough out there. We knew that there was going to be a baby boomer influx here over the next 10 years. Nobody knew there was going to be a pandemic influx.
Yeah.
And so that's really, that's put us at incredibly low numbers for vacancy, which is fantastic.
Yeah. Do you want to talk about Georgia at all? Do you have any more inventory in the Atlanta market?
The townhouse development went very well. We're looking at another phase, but again, we're really trying to price that market because materials are very tough in Atlanta right now. And we're always working on new deals. We have another project that could come online. But again, I never like to promise too early because there could be something stifled in the development due diligence process. So we're looking up there still. But honestly, Jason, where we feel most at home, where we feel the most need, where we feel the most margin of safety when it comes to being able to collect our rents or get things done right, it's Florida. So we are really, and as you know, we had talked about going into Tennessee about 1.5 years ago. We decided the lots that we got, and we just sold them off because we believe in Florida. We are definitely Florida boys.
Yeah.
we think
Well,
it has.
You live in Florida, so
Yeah. So I'm eating my own cooking, and I wouldn't want to live anywhere else right now. That's for sure.
Yeah, good stuff. Well, what else do you want people to know about investing, the economy, the market cycles, just anything else you want to share?
Yeah, I think, if you and I were having coffee right now, there's two things that always seem to come up. The old, I remember when, and I remember when my first property in Lompoc, California, 3-family house that I bought 24 years ago, my interest rate with 750 credit scores was 9.125.
Wow.
I was putting 15% down. So it was a little less down, but that's a heck of an interest rate. Now we're locking in the threes. Yeah. And I tell people
your interest rate is 1/3.
Yeah.
Basically of what it used to be.
1/3. And I think people really have to look at that, because there will be people, I think, in 3 to 4 years that are going, well, I was ready to get in, but now the numbers don't make sense. And even if the pricing has started to, subside and rents are still going up, the problem is, as we know, if we're using leverage and the interest rate's too high. So this is a very unique time where you have great interest rates, and the Fannie Freddie is still gifting this money, for people out there. And I think that's absolutely huge. And I think overall, I encourage people to look at the affordability index and at what could be the internal rate of return. Ask people that you're working with, have you done properties? And, can you give some case studies of people over the last 4 or 5 years? And when you start to look at that internal rate of return, which you and I are always talking about, the depreciation, the debt reduction, the value increase, which we don't depend on, but again, I'll take it if the wind's at our back and the fundamentals are there, the cash flow, all those together, you can start to see an incredible return. I mean, I think if you remember at your event, Jason, we pulled out the worst new construction deal we've ever done 7 years ago when we built our first neighborhood, and we were figuring out how to screen for tenants the right way. We had an awful run of tenants on the very first new construction house that we ever did. It had 2 turnovers in 3 years, which was substantial. The person said, you know what? Great. We see it. We're still doing okay, but we want to sell it. They sold the property in 3 years. It was a 24% IRR. Wow. So it went completely wrong. We're the first to say it. We knew the person. They went on to buy more properties. But when we looked at it and said that was the worst case of the worst house, that's a pretty good indicator of what.
It's pretty great if that's the worst deal.
It's not normal to have two bad turnovers on a new construction in 3 years. That's just not the norm. So I just think look at overall IRR. And the fundamentals, and ignore the media. I mean, holy cow, they're always screaming at the wrong time. So
well, that's what grabs attention. It's all, we live in a clickbait world. The old saying in the media, if it bleeds, it leads. The bubble-headed bleach blonde comes on at 5. She'll tell you about the plane crash with a gleam in her eyes. It's interesting when people die. We love dirty laundry, right? As Don Henley said.
Old Don Henley, yep.
So, that's what sells. That's what people want to hear. They want to hear that kind of sensationalism. It works. So, it's hard to blame them for doing it, because that's the world we live in. But good solid fundamentals in good solid markets with politically right-leaning environments that are landlord-friendly, that are business-friendly, where people want to come to these places. They want to vacation in places like Florida. Makes for really good ingredients for sure. So appreciate you coming back on and sharing some of this stuff with us. And thank you for the awesome property tour you did. Everybody just said such great things about it. And then thanks for attending the event and helping people out there too. Jen was there manning everything after you left, and she did a great job too. So we had a lot of fun there, folks. So don't miss our next event, everybody, because they're always fun and people were dancing up a storm on the dance floor. It was just a good time. So you want to definitely come to those. So if you have any more questions, reach out, jasonhartman.com or 1-800-HARTMAN. And until next time, happy investing.
So George Gammon, Jason Hartman, and we've created a high-level mastermind group called The Collective. The goal of The Collective is for you to learn from the three of us, as well as, of course, the other members, on how to build and, more importantly, how to maintain your wealth. In this video, we're going to go into detail about what The Collective is and what it can do for you. Enjoy. So I'm Ken McElroy. I've been in real estate for over 30 years. Started with a 2-bedroom, 2-bath using my own money, and now I own over $1 billion worth of real estate that I bought over the years, built a big company. We have a construction company, a development company, a property management company, and of course an investment company. And typically now we syndicate and work with large, both private and public institutions for the equity and the debt. And so what I bring to the collective is how to scale, how to grow, starting with one really small property with no experience at all and growing it into an organization, which I've been able to do that basically runs almost without me. So that's what I'm going to bring to the collective. We decided to start the collective because, one, I met George Gammon, and George brings a very interesting perspective about the economy and the Fed and the way money works and Bitcoin and alternative types of investments, which quite honestly, I was super focused on real estate almost the entire time. And even I want to be a little bit more diverse. So when I talk to George and to Jason, they're always doing very, very different things on the investment side. Jason specifically is more focused on the single family housing and what's going on in that market so that we could collaborate and have different viewpoints on different things. And so that's why I thought the collective would be good, because I think everybody's kind of searching for the same kinds of answers. So the collective means to me, basically, the collective group, the whole. And I've always been a big believer of team and collaboration. So for me, it really means collaboration, of everyone kind of coming into a room and learning from each other based on their individual highs and their individual lows, and to be very, very respectful of all their independent views on things, and to be more open-minded, transparent, and authentic. So I cannot wait for the group to get together each and every quarter, because we all have very different walks of life that we're going through, and so it's very, very cool to get into one room with like-minded people. I think the right person for the collective is somebody who's into personal development, somebody who's trying to be a better individual, somebody who's trying to have that work-life balance, trying to figure out good decision-making on the investment side specifically, good decision-making on the personal side perhaps, certainly on their health and on their wealth. The members that have already signed up are people typically that have businesses that they're growing, businesses that they've started, or businesses that they've sold. So typically they're higher net worth, and they're trying to figure out what to do with their money. They're probably a little bit afraid of inflation. They're probably a little bit concerned about where to invest. And they're obviously looking at real estate as one component, somebody that's trying to do the right things both on the personal side and on the financial side. So some of the experiences that members can expect to get out of the collective are certainly the network. And I think that's always super powerful. I've been involved in groups like this before, like EO and YPO, the Entrepreneurs Organization, and YPO, which is Young Presidents Organization, which is kind of a peer-to-peer network. And that's what I envisioned, and I think people are going to certainly get that out of there. They're going to have lifelong friends for sure from this, and they're going to meet people at every single event. But also, we're going to have fun. So as an example, things like race car driving and doing all kinds of really cool things and meeting celebrities and things like that, and fashion shows are going to be part of it. So it's kind of how do we have fun and learn together, and we're going to have that at each and every event. So thanks for watching. If you guys are interested, there's a link below you can click on. It'll take you right to the website, which has a load of information on exactly what the collective is, where the next events are, and what exactly you'll be getting if you become a member. Thanks for watching.
Thank you so much for listening. Please be sure to subscribe so that you don't miss any episodes. Be sure to check out the show's specific website and our general website, hartmanmedia.com, for appropriate disclaimers and terms of service. Remember that guest opinions are their own, and if you require specific legal or tax advice or advice in any other specialized area, please consult an appropriate professional. And we also very much appreciate you reviewing the show. Please please go to iTunes or Stitcher Radio or whatever platform you're using and write a review for the show. We would very much appreciate that. And be sure to make it official and subscribe so you do not miss any episodes. We look forward to seeing you on the next episode.